This is the Bacci slot mortiser. It's used for cutting long mortises. It's an oscillating cut. So we'll take a look at it a little closer, but let's look at some of the components on it first. If we look at this little valve here, when we slide it up, it gives the machine air. When we slide it down, it turns the air off. When you're running the machine, you want to make sure that it's up in that position. That's important, or the machine won't run. That's a simple on-off switch. It makes the spindle go back and forth. If we back out a little bit and look at, this is a lock lever, and combined with this knob, it raises and lowers the entire table, which you see here. Okay, now let's take a look at the other side of the machine. This is the spindle. It holds the cutting bit. This is the piston that drops down and holds the piece in work. And notice that little brass tubing. Out of this brass tubing comes a blast of air, and you want to make sure your eyes aren't there when that blast occurs, or you'll get a bunch of dust. The purpose of this wooden piece is to prevent the metal from marring your stock, and if there is a problem from the bit making contact with the metal, we'd rather have it hit the wood instead. This mechanism here, this black knob with the Allen nut, slides in, and when it makes contact with this button, it makes the table come back. So the relationship of this Allen nut on the bar determines how deep it will be cutting. This is also the emergency stop. So if something awry is happening, if you bang that ball in, it'll hit that button and make the whole table return. Alright? This lever controls the width of cut. So by dialing it in and out, it tells how wide of how long of a mortise that you're going to have. Now, it used to have a little lever on it that broke off, but to compensate for that, we do the following. We take an Allen key and shove it in the hole over here and pull it back. That unlocks it. And then by moving this in or out, you can see the scale. By moving that in or out, it controls how wide or how long of a mortise we're going to cut. And when you have the adjustment that you want, you shove the Allen key in there and lock it down. That's very important to happen, because the machine will slowly vibrate if it's not locked, and you'll end up getting a wider and wider mortise. In a nutshell, that's all of the components of the machine. I want to talk about a few more components on this machine. What I have resting on the table is the foot switch. This is the foot switch. Normally you just tap that and it starts the cycle. I'm going to set that on the floor. Alright? When I tap it, the cycle begins. And you can see how it's traveling in. We have this little knob right here, and what happens, that controls the speed. So I can slow it way down, or I can speed it way up. And normally when I'm doing this, I have my hand like this so as not to get caught when that bounces back. So by here I'm okay. You can see how fast it's going. Normally I like to feed pretty slow. Probably something along those lines is a good feed. Now notice as well we have this black collar here. I went ahead and put that on this machine. That limits the travel of the piston. As I said before, we have this wooden piece, whereas if the machine automatically cycles on its own, or you lose track of what's happening, we don't want this bit making contact with the metal. The way it's set up now, the bit would make contact with the actual piece of wood, which would be much safer. Here on the table. What that pencil line represents is the center of the mortise cut. It's the center of the mortise cut. So if I'm going to make a cut, I'll slide my piece in. You know, this piece has a line on it. I'll slide that line in and line it up with the line on that piece of tape. Now if I'm going to cycle it, I have this piston in line with that, and I usually do what's called a bridge, where I straddle it over to hold it in place. To me that works easier. You're going to find other people use this machine totally different. So I start it up, I have my bridge there, I tap, it presses down, everything's locked in place, and now it's cut and mortise. And you can see the mortise there that it cut. There's the mortise, if it'll focus. Here's the mortise, neatly cut.